Well, it's that time again. Well, it's time for So What Do You Think About That? And this time, it's What Do You Think About the final 2020 presidential debate? And it is with me, the best, Lucy, and...
And Verity, the other best, the better.
Oh, yeah, right, sure.
Yeah, so before you press play, I was just thinking about the stuff we've heard during the week about, and we should say up front, we've both purposely avoided watching the debate.
Of course.
And trying to avoid recaps or whatever else. So we don't really know what happened in the debate. We just heard the stuff leading up to the debate about Trump going, oh, wow, it's really unfair. The rules are unfair because I'm going to get muted. I kind of don't quite comprehend how that could be conceived as unfair because the rules are the same for both of them.
I do feel like saying that wow is very inflammatory towards
it was very
right.
though.
No, but that is very inflammatory. You could choose a better wording for that, I would say.
Really? That was just my interpretation of what I saw.
I mean,
I thought it was wow. If Biden had said it, I would have said the same thing.
Yes, but still, it's you could choose a better term. He was
what would you say?
Unpresidential.
Okay, it's unpresidential to speak in such a way. Wow.
Yeah, see, you know what's up.
Right, okay, so come on. All right, is there anything you want to say before it starts?
I predict... Alright, so here are my opening predictions.
Oh yeah, good point.
I predict that this time Biden will be more prepared to have everything he says cut into, and Trump will be trying really, really hard to appeal to his base. I think that
Meaning what?
I think that he's going to be a bit desperate, and you'll see it in the intensity of his arguments.
So do you think that means he will be more and more inflammatory, more adversarial? What?
Probably. Well, there's always adversarial. That's kind of
but like if you're saying he's going to seem more desperate, how's that going to present? Do you think? How will we know if that's true?
Probably just through his own exasperation and refusal to cooperate with the debate moderator.
Okay, so if he's argumentative with the moderator, that's a pretty good sign. He's desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any opening predictions of this fucking train wreck?
I predict that it'll be a shit show like before. I reckon if they do mute Trump, it's not going to work because he'll just yell. And he'll still talk over the top of Biden. His microphone won't be working. And so I'm not sure that that's going to do a whole lot. But I do like that they're doing it. I think that it's sort of really tragic that they've had to. But probably an important thing because, you know, it's ridiculous.
All right.
It's ridiculous. It can't just be a slinging match.
It's ridiculous. It's fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
I also think, yeah, like you said, Biden will be more prepared. He hopefully won't get so frazzled this time. Because I think that he had good things to say last time, but he got caught off guard by how hard Trump came out at him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that this is really Biden's chance to prove he's not sleepy Biden. And if he fucks...
Oh, I don't think he's sleepy. Did you see how fast he was speaking in his town hall?
Yes.
That was like he was on speed. Let's not say that Biden was on speed, but he did speak pretty fast during that thing, and I didn't think for 1 second that he was sleepy. So...
against the president.
Okay, the debate is about to begin. As we said, the moderator, Kristen Welker of NBC News. 6 big topics on the agenda tonight: fighting COVID, race, national security, climate change, and presidential leadership. Let's go to Kristen Welker.
Good evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump.
Wait.
What?
I predict also that because she's brown and she's a woman, he's going to be really disrespectful to her. Don't she just for the record, Lucy just choked on her tea.
Listen, all right.
Okay.
Listen, okay. Listen.
Like seriously, everything about her he detests. So
It'll be fine.
also, I think we found out
she's-
she's a bit left of centre in her
She's
reporting.
from NBC, so that means
okay,
that he'll love her.
So yeah, this is gonna go well.
Yeah.
And former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former
Do
Vice
we
President
think
Joe
that Trump will
Biden
get
and
more
President
cheers?
Donald J. Trump.
Did she just say? Oh, I think I spaced out because it was an intro. Did she just say that we have to listen to the cheers? They're measuring them.
I'm measuring them.
You're measuring them. Okay.
They came out at the same time.
I think the
Not
audience,
measurable.
the audience is being very presidential. So professional.
And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics.
Just think, she had her legs crossed when she said that.
I just need
She's
to,
like if she could have had her fingers crossed in camera, she would have.
I just need to point out here that if we just go back a fucking second, I'm pretty sure you didn't catch this.
No.
Interruptions, except right now, as we welcome
at
to
the
the
beginning.
stage
So-
former
Yeah.
Vice
So
President
just
Joe Biden
listen
and
to
President
what-
Donald J. Trump.
Listen to what they say to each other. It's picked up by their mics.
So she is
So-
saying no interruptions by them or no interruptions by the audience?
Audience.
Okay.
So now listen. Whoops, sorry.
Wait, is there something you know that I don't?
They're like, how you going? How are
I do
you
wanna
to
say
each
a
other
very
as if they're
good
chums.
evening
It's
to
the
both
weirdest
of
thing
you. This
because
debate will cover
they
6
don't even answer the
major
question.
topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when 2 minutes have expired.
Biden's fucking face.
Also, Trump just looked like someone stole his Cocoa Pop.
You speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other, and for
so
the
unfair,
American people
wow,
to
wow.
hear every word of what
Bruh.
you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question.
Just for the record, in the first presidential debate that was so unpresidential, both parties it did interrupt, but they counted up the interruptions, and Trump's was something like 70, and Biden's interruption count was 20. So we know who does the most interrupting, just for anyone that's listening.
Question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible
up.
disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe. And
Hang on, isn't that the definition of a pandemic?
No, it's
that
not.
It's out in the world.
No, well, no.
Yeah,
Well,
it is. It's
no,
international if it's a pandemic.
Well, yes, but also him. Basically, what he's trying to do here is the crux of his point is he's trying to decentralize it from America and therefore put the weight off of himself.
And go, oh, everyone's going through this, so, you know, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So it's not just me, but, you know, America represents... Oh, that's right. I looked up the other day the numbers. This is probably middle of the week, just before the debate. And India, who has a population of something like 1 billion people, had, I think it was 220,000 deaths. Compared to America, who had a similar number, and they only have 330 million people. So India, which is what, I don't know if we call it a third world nation, but, you know, it's developing compared to the US, has been managing their case numbers better than the US.
The
and
UK has
ending
been
up
doing
with a similar death
The UK
figure
has had the highest death toll so far.
per per capita or something.
Yeah, some
Right.
crazy fucking number. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they're on a spike at the moment as well. But yeah, the number of deaths, of the total deaths across the world, America represents 20%. So that's quite significant. They're not 20% of the population of the world, so that is a show that they're not taking care of it properly. What are you doing?
I'm just checking the death toll. Give me a second here. 20% is roughly correct. It's more like 25. Sorry, not 25. Sorry, more like maybe 18% now.
Okay.
Many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much.
Hold on.
Yeah, let's look that up. Mortality rate. Trend in America, maybe.
Alright. Mortality rate America.
Probably need to put COVID.
Yeah. It is...
I mean, he might mean it's down from how bad it was. Look at April. And what was that? The end of June?
Hold on, I'll
Beginning of
put this one
July.
up so people can actually see
Oh,
it.
I thought they could.
No, I was searching on the other window.
Oops.
Um,
Sure. All right. So that's an interesting graph.
well, I think that he said 90%.
Doesn't look like a whole lot has changed in the last.
Hold on. When did
several
this
months.
happen? This was the 23rd.
Yeah, this is yesterday.
So no, it hasn't gone down enough.
Hasn't gone. What did he say? 85% drop.
Something like that. That's patently false, as you can see.
Yes. What was the other thing he just said?
I mean, it depends what he's comparing it to, but even from here, that's not 85%.
I mean, one thing we've seen with him with stats is that he tends to focus on not the actual death rates, but on how things have improved a little here and there. And then he claims those are the rates. It's sort of weird. He distorts the statistics and he's not really looking at what everybody else in the world is looking at. So he's basically looking for something that he can say is a good thing, which is understandable, but he'd be better off saying, look, we messed up and we've got to try and do better from here
Good
on,
joke.
Yeah, but people would appreciate the honesty. It's just a good joke to expect that. Anyway.
Much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes
wouldn't that be
and
down to each of
surges
the
in
state
other places.
governments,
They will soon be
rather
gone.
than
We have a
anything
vaccine
he's
that's
done?
coming. It's ready.
But they could be
going to be
Republican.
announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell
I
you
hate
from
that
personal
name.
experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something
He
that
had it, but
they
he's
gave
immune,
me,
don't forget.
a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune,
Can we
whether it's
pause
4
there?
months or a lifetime.
Can we just point out that what he got was the best treatment anyone in the world would ever get, and that the claims he makes about COVID after that, as though everyone else could get exactly the same treatment, is just a load of crap.
Additionally, there's a lot of contention around if he actually had COVID in the first place, or if it was a political ploy.
Well, let's just say for argument's sake he did, and he went like any president would to the hospital where they go and got exemplary treatment from a bunch of doctors who are terrified of killing their president, and they do everything they possibly can. And he took experimental treatment,
Right.
the Regeneron, which isn't a cure. It's a bunch of immune system bolstering stuff. And, that it actually did help him because they got it in time. Let's just say all of that is true. He has then come out afterwards claiming that, it's available for everyone. There's not enough doses for that. He said that he'd actually pay for it, that they could all access that for free, that Regeneron treatment. There's 500,000 doses of it apparently, but that's nowhere near enough for
That's not
even the
a
active
fraction.
cases in one day.
Yeah.
So, everything he says after that is kind of unreasonable because he's applying his own paradigm as though it's applicable to every single person in the US, which is crap.
But that's a very right-wing sort of viewpoint in that, like, if I can, you can sort of thing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. But, I mean, he's also just lying.
Yeah.
Nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better.
Nobody.
We have,
Trump's the only person who's
a
immune.
problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide.
Actually, the virus can develop immunity. You can.
Yeah, but
develop
he said
immunity.
nobody's been able to say that except him.
Yeah.
So, you know, because he's a superhero.
Problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're
Is that
rounding
actually
the
true?
corner.
Can we look
It's
up the
going
ventilator
away.
thing?
Okay, former Vice President.
New tab in this browser. So people can see.
No.
What?
Ventilator.
Oh.
America.
Why did you go to a different browser?
Actually, wait. ContraPoint. Wait, no.
No, you just want to find out if it's true. Is America creating lots of ventilators for the rest of the world?
I'm just looking it up on PolitiFact. Give me a second here.
Can people see what we're doing?
Nope.
Then that's not much chop.
I was setting it up so I didn't have to go through all the searching. Alright, so...
Maybe do a find-in page for ventilators.
Doop 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 doop. These are the only things.
VENTI, and it will narrow it down. L.
There's only one of one.
Oh, what's that?
No, I guess that wasn't
It's not
something
mentioned.
that was
They didn't
PolitiFact.
They didn't check it. Okay.
It's whatever.
All right.
President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else.
He is seething that he can't talk.
Yeah, look at that face.
Watch,
oh my God.
Watch his bodily movements.
I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now. 1,000 deaths a day.
So this actually seems like...
Presidential, almost.
No, this actually seems like a coping method that was told to him by
to write it
his
down
speech.
when you want to yell.
Yeah, like actually, this seems like a genuine coping method.
Yeah.
He is writing so he doesn't verbally interrupt.
But that's what a lot of them do. They write down
And
things they
there are
want to say
over
later. But that's just professional.
70,000
No, but it's more
cases
just something
per day.
I'm noting.
Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore
that's
these
only a few months
masks,
away.
the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national...
There's a weak point in the way he's speaking in that he's missing words.
Well, he slurs it slightly. He has a
No,
way
but
of,
he's missing words and then repeating the word after, which is something that he'll
as
be...
in he's correcting himself.
Yeah, listen closer.
All right.
standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing.
All right, so
Yeah.
Here's my.
But he just stumbles on a word here and there and then corrects it. He recognizes he's doing it.
No, but
I'm not sure what your point is.
my point is more that that's something that the right is going to capitalize on as part of his as part of the narrative
Of
that he's
accusing him of being demented or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, here's my take on the argument here. Trump, he's doing an argument saying we're doing great, we're managing to pull ourselves out of this.
It's a very beautiful thing.
Shut up.
Everybody says
Shut up.
so.
Shut up. His argument is that we're pulling ourselves out. We're
Right.
trying to elevate ourselves and we're doing great. Other countries are praising us.
Yep.
Biden's argument, the crux of it is that Trump isn't doing enough and that more lives could be saved and that his inaction is killing people. That's essentially the crux of both arguments.
That's good. I think I agree with you.
I think that really the only argument that's
He also said what he would do as well. What he
did.
would
He
do
did.
as instead.
the issue is with Trump's is that his argument didn't have much substance. It was mostly bolstering words rather than actual substantive points.
Yep.
Though the ventilators thing was an example of something he did say that actually had some sort of weight, although
I'd like to research that further later.
Regeneron, you also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year.
It's not a guarantee. It's just a brag. It's just a carrot. Let's dangle the vaccine carrot of the untested vaccine that we're going to all give you in a few weeks, and then you might all
No.
be happy.
What he's saying is that the vaccine will be ready in a couple of weeks, and then he said, "Oh, it'll probably be ready at the end of the year."
Everybody says
What
so.
does he immediately say?
I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very
Can
quickly.
you tell us which companies?
Johnson
even
&
got the
Johnson is doing
infrastructure
very
to
well.
distribute it yet.
Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well, and we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the...
Okay, so...
Sorry, what?
So he's currently saying that because... So this is his argument.
Also, hang on, I just have to say thank you for freeze framing him in that facial expression, because that's amusing.
Alright, so here's his argument. The military.
Well, he's just jumped straight into the military. What are they going to do? Shoot people with vaccines?
He's saying that the military is going to stop this. I don't understand the
I
argument.
think he's talking about the vaccines. So.
No, but he was saying that because we have the military on side, we won't need to social distance. That's basic.
head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon
Yeah,
as we
it's
have the
that
vaccine.
distribution.
And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden,
That's
your reaction, and
330
just
million people in the
40% of
US.
Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a...
This is actually a good bit.
That's a good point to make.
So no. It doesn't matter what he's saying at all. What matters is he's pointing out that the president is a bullshitter. That's all that matters.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
dark winter, a dark winter. And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're going
plan.
to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But
So actually, he didn't just say he was xenophobic because he closed the border to China. He did it. He said it because he didn't close the border to countries that mattered, that were also bringing it in, like Europe, in particular. The European countries were bringing it into America a lot, and he didn't close the borders to them. And that is what Biden criticized.
It was a posturing gesture that functionally did nothing.
And it's also along, you got to remember that it's part of a pattern of behavior where Trump has been hassling, calling it the China virus and all of that.
Something that I just find really just funny is
the
that
little American flags.
Well, he's got a blue tie because he's a Democrat, red tie because Republican, and they both have this at the
American
same bit,
pin.
on the exact same bit on their suit.
There's probably a buttonhole there for it.
You think?
I don't know. I don't wear a man's suit.
He didn't
But I
move
think
quicker.
so.
He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was
He's
a total
trying so hard not
disaster,
to
far
laugh.
less lethal. But it was a total disaster. Had that
Disaster.
had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now. But it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person
I will
who
say,
ran that for
I'm not
him,
sure Biden has
who,
answered that
as you
point
know,
properly
was
in the
his
past.
He avoids
chief of
it.
staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way
What,
every
because he
single
didn't
move
know
that-
once, he can't ever know?
But no, but his point is the appeal to the past rather than the appeal to the present. He's saying that because he fucked up last time, he'll fuck up again.
So who are we talking? Who's that? Who are you
Trump
talking about? Trump?
Trump is implying that because Biden fucked up once, he'll fuck up again.
Yeah, well, not just that, but that it's impossible for him to know what he's talking about now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was pointing out.
He said we should make. That's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your
Up until
reaction.
that last
Over
line,
soon,
I
I
don't
say
think he
we're
said much
learning to
coherent
live with
answer
it. We
there.
have
No, yeah, that's kind of the stereotypical sort of narrative of him seeming senile, because that was just so much disjointed thought.
Yeah, it
no
wasn't a good
choice. We
argument.
can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about
What?
living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room
We'd
in
all
the
love
White
you to
House
be put in
and
the
go away
basement.
for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot.
What?
I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now
How many times did that man say, it's nothing much, it's just another flu, don't worry about it, we don't need masks, be a real man, don't wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Biden is the big wuss because he wears a mask all the time.
I don't see how this is
And he's-
relevant.
Well, he's going on and on about how everyone he met, he told them how dangerous it was.
Well, he was...
He did the opposite of that until the very last minute.
Well, yes, but he's trying to make the argument that he's self-sacrificing.
Well, yeah, but the other part that I'm just talking about is that he made that argument to people. He claims he made that argument to people, but actually he did the opposite and undermined public health by telling them all not to wear a mask when that could have actually saved a lot of lives. Just that
I
one thing.
recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation.
That's
we have
actually
to
not
open
true.
our school.
In
And
America,
we
the
can't close up our
percentage of
nation,
death is
or you're not going to have a nation.
2.4% or something.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair.
That was strong.
Yeah,
that was a
that's
really
that's
strong
hammer
retort.
home point, yeah.
That was a really, really strong
At the
point.
kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was actually really good. All right, Biden. I will give you that one. That one was fantastic.
I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault.
I take full responsibility.
It's
but
not
it's
my
not
fault. It's China. China. Oh my God. This man. Oh man.
I take full responsibility, except that I don't.
Except that I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Not my fault.
And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They can't.
I take full responsibility.
But it's China.
Shut up. So
Sorry.
the whole this.
What? What are you gonna say?
Okay, so the thing is, he's taking responsibility for the fact that China did it. Isn't that right, Spooky?
Is he? Is he though?
Yeah, he's taking full responsibility
For telling us that China did it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that. A lot of people thought it was serious.
Hang on.
A whole range of.
I just want to inform the public about that. So there's a product out there called Miracle Mineral Solution, which is basically bleach. The solution that's made from it, that is used to treat people's supposedly treat people's illnesses, is actually a chemical that's used for industrial cleaning.
Which is equivalent to a
Yes.
bleach.
Historically, it's been around for some time, and there's a fellow who established a, in quotes, church to market that product to the rest of the world and to avoid tax. That product has been used historically to supposedly cure things like AIDS, cancer, autism, and a whole myriad of other things. Cholera.
To be fair, you are cured if you die. So
Well, yeah, I guess, but depends on what you have, because some of those things don't die with the body. They just, that's why they burn.
yeah,
the
but
bodies.
you're not suffering from it anymore because you're dead.
Right, okay.
So you're cured.
Anyway, so the treatment of that is either by drinking the bleach or doing an enema of the bleach or even injecting the bleach. The man who established that church got in touch, wrote a letter to Trump 3 days before he made the stupid comment about injecting bleach, telling him all about his product and why it should be used to cure COVID. And that is why Trump, idiot that he is, came out in the media and said maybe bleach would fix it, because he took the word of a charlatan who wrote him a letter.
Which, I mean, listen, alright.
Like, that is illegal, by the way. This treatment is illegal in multiple countries.
To be fair, Biden saying that isn't technically fully correct. Trump didn't say inject it. And
Yes, he did.
He did
He
not say
did. He
inject
said maybe
it.
if we inject bleach, it will fix it.
No,
He actually did.
He didn't
Google
say
it.
bleach specifically.
Google it. He did. He might have said Clorox, but that's I'm not sure whether he specified a product. See?
Oh, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's disinfectant. But
Disinfectant,
yes.
there you go. But it was based on that other...
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
things
backstory that most
president
people
has
don't
said.
know.
Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this,
Sorry, what was he kidding on?
So he was kidding about the bleach. It was a joke.
Oh, yeah, of course.
when
'cause
I
it was stupid.
closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say should have
did.
called
You
Pelosi,
certainly
and I
did.
I talked
Here it comes.
The interruption. Well, is this
about
discussion time?
xenophobia in a different context.
No,
it
it was
wasn't
30
about
seconds.
closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to
He
handling
thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well, let's-
That's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay. Strategies to
Okay.
Well done.
Mr.
Don't get
Vice
sucked
President,
in.
That was actually
He didn't do well at that last time.
that was
so-
an interesting ploy. The ploy to not go by Trump's narrative and to just refuse to respond
Yes.
will be seen as weakness by some of Trump's base, but will be seen as strength by the base that Biden's trying
But
to...
if you think about it, what was it in the Kamala Harris and
Kamala
Mike
Harris
Pence
got-
discussion, she got slammed for allowing Pence to
Control the
the
narrative.
narrative. Every
Yeah.
time he didn't answer a question, he brought up a new topic, and she responded to that topic instead of the original question.
Yeah.
And that in so doing, she allowed him to control the narrative, which
And
was-
avoid answering
was a
every
mistake.
question.
Yeah, and she never called him out on not answering, and I felt that was a big mistake. So
Jess, you would support-
Biden doing this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Oh, well, no, I'm not shutting down the neighborhood, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. More social distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President
Well,
Trump,
I think we have to respond if I...
Okay, so just to quickly put in here, I think that Biden was strong there, but I think that also it took him a little too long to get to the point about schools.
Well, that was just an example.
No, but I think that
I thought he did well because he covered the, if we do open up, we have to do it sensibly.
I think that the reclosing thing will isolate some base though, because
Absolutely, but he's
because
not-
there's a good 30% of Americans who are like completely against lockdown now.
Of course, but Biden's actually against lockdown. So it's a bit of a weird question for him because it's not actually what he's promoting. He doesn't like lockdown. He wants to keep the economy open, but do things safely, like he just said. He wants to do things like have, and I'm surprised he didn't get into it. Maybe he will later, but he wants to have businesses get a sort of accreditation that allows them to put like a certificate on the door saying we've been checked, we have our protocols in place, it is safe for you to come in here. And that way the economy can open up in ways where people, if they show that they're doing stuff that's appropriately keeping people safe, then they can operate their business, you know. There's nothing wrong with that, but none of that stuff is in place. Are you looking to see if it's dropping? What is that compared to? Oh, this is all. That's all.
This is over 5 years. 2018.
Wow, look at the value
was
of it
its
at the
lowest
start of the
point.
year.
It was
COVID has shoved it up.
so no. It came up because they did like $1 trillion stimulus package, and now it's crashing.
Oh, okay. I hadn't
Yeah.
actually looked at that at all.
No,
this
they
year.
did a massive, ridiculous stimulus package near the start of the year.
And that pushed their dollar up.
Yeah, and it was mostly a political stunt because now they're in huge debt, and now their dollar is falling once again.
Yeah, because a good stimulus would have helped them through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the stimulus
All right.
was more
Please,
like,
and then I have a
like
follow-up.
Thank you,
companies
and I
and stuff
appreciate
than
that.
people
Look,
who
all
matter.
he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York. You look at what's going on in California. You look at
Loves to attack Cuomo, doesn't
So
he?
so problem is here, he's taken the fight off of Biden. So he said, forget about Biden for a second. He's immediately
Gone to the Democratic.
he's done the wrong
Governors.
thing. So insulting Democrats is fine, but he needs to degrade his opponent. The
Yeah,
moment
but his opponent is the Democrats,
no,
right?
his opponent is Biden because people see the party as one person.
Yeah, okay.
Most people
well,
will see
I
the
feel
party
like they
as
do
one
that when
person.
it comes to Trump, but not when it comes to Biden. Interestingly,
They absolutely do. They said it was crooked Hillary, and
Yeah.
that Hillary represented all of the Democrats, and that all the Democrats would be crooked because Hillary was.
yeah, okay.
One person represents the whole party. The moment that you look away from that one person and divert the argument, it's a weak argument.
Right.
Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have
that
to
true?
open our
Can you pause
country.
and check
We're not
that?
going to
Transmission rate to teachers from students.
Wow. Transmission.
Oh, I wasn't necessarily going PolitiFact. Just Google it because there'll be someone that's answered that question. Is the transmission rate to teachers low from students, teachers?
COVID. Let's just have a look-see here.
CDC.
Wait. That's among kids.
Yeah.
CDC, I guess. Yeah.
Indicators to inform decision making.
It's probably not something I'll be able to read on the fly
we
here.
have time. Just do it. It's better to have that right answer.
It's critical for schools to open safely and quickly. No, this doesn't cover that. This doesn't.
Well, can you click on that? That's probably it. That's probably what we need. Number of new cases per 100,000. Lowest risk of transmission in schools less than 5. Percentage. Oh, I see. So there's the scale. There's a headings. Then
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you implement no strategies, and the schools explode. But.
So it's still quite risky. 8 to 10% if it's only implementing 1 or 2 strategies. If you implement all 5, it drops that to less than 3%. So in theory, if all of these systems that are listed there, these interventions, are the things that Biden is talking about, which I think they are, then
The schools should
the
be
schools
safe.
should be able to be open.
But
But,
the issue
Trump
is-
has refused to fund it.
Yeah, if they're not funded, then they can't.
Yeah, so
actually
then
do
they
it.
can't really open safely. So it's kind of a moot point, the stuff he's saying, because he's not going to do it safely.
So,
Yeah.
okay, the claim on transmission rate, we can pretty safely agree is false.
Well, it would be
Have a
lower if
country.
it wasn't.
You can't do this.
If he
We can't
implemented
keep
the
this
strategies.
country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive
He keeps claiming that,
bureaucracy
but
says
Biden
we
has
should close
never
it
said
down.
it.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum
It's a
at the
straw
same
man
time.
argument.
We ought to be able to safely open, but would they need resources to open? You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this.
Note
And
that
that
he's
is not
actually saying real things.
inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you
Good way to
quickly.
point
I
that
will
out.
say this.
That was
if you
actually
go and
good.
look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably
not putting it up
expensive.
is fine?
And it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant.
city
It's
that's
dying.
suing you.
Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look
Vice
at what
President
New
Biden.
York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states
wait,
in
he
the
just
upper Midwest.
contradicted
That's
himself.
where the spike is
That was actually...
That was bad, yeah.
He was trying to do a partisan thing,
And then he just totally went bipartisan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the
just said
help
that
that the
backwards.
businesses need, that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you
about-
say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed, and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on.
That's actually an interesting...
Oh my god.
No, that is actually a really interesting argument. I've heard this one before.
Which bit?
The argument is pretty simple. The idea is that the United States is not doing worse than the rest of the world because they have more tests and therefore can prove more cases than, say, Africa.
Yes.
That's the argument. And that's what he's trying to say. He's basically trying to say that we're not doing worse than anyone else because we just have enough tests.
We have more testing, but they don't actually have more testing, I think. I seem to remember reading something about that a while ago, that it's not even true.
No, their testing can take upwards of 2 weeks, last I remember.
And people wait for an appointment to do a test, and
Yeah.
they're not necessarily doing more testing.
No.
But also, he's saying the argument, which we're hearing in other places too, of protect the weaker members of the community, but don't worry about everyone else. That's the gist of what he's describing, is saying we have to protect the elderly, we have to protect, those with the weakened immune systems and stuff, but we have to open up, which means he's saying that the elderly and the infirm and the immunocompromised should just stay home, lock them up. Why should everybody else suffer? That is the gist of his argument. But it's not actually sensible, because there's still other people get sick and die. You don't have to just be immunocompromised or old to get sick and die. He even just said the statistics of New York, if those statistics were accurate, that of 40,000 deaths, 11,000 of them were old people in nursing homes. So there's still like 29,000 people there that weren't. So he's undermined his own argument with those stats. To me, we've seen it here. It's been done here in Australia. There's been sensible lockdowns. Melbourne has been through a nightmare, really, but in the end, their numbers have come down to 0 this week. So, one new case yesterday, which was, I think, a reinfection or something. So, doing the lockdowns works. It's painful, but it's temporary if it's done. And I mean, this all seems to be a bit of a matter of opinion at the moment, but the proof is in the strategies that have been implemented, and the ones where the lockdown has happened, they've managed to nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Zealand's a great example of that. Australia is too, because we've divided into states to do it. And
New Zealand's Prime Minister is fantastic. She's an awesome woman.
So, I mean, New Zealand isn't really a fair example because they're only 5 million people or something. So they're kind of like New York City or something.
And their density is also distributed much more than in one massive city of like New York.
But when they've had outbreaks, they've actually done lockdowns in those areas. And they've been quite serious lockdowns. And then they've not nipped it in the bud and not allowed it to grow.
Yeah.
So that's worked. And it can work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To our next section, President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to to fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony.
I'm shocked that he's actually gone after Fauci.
So, no, I've actually just got to say, I really like this moderator.
Yeah.
I think that she's got good questions.
very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us, Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on.
The Wall Street one, I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
He's agitated.
You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money as president and as somebody that knows most of the...
See how he's now saying, I can raise more money? He's really agitated. He's trying to bolster himself.
I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America.
I
would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records. that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact,
Wow, he's so defensive.
we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move.
Remember how
What
I
is
said
that about?
Remember
Like-
how I said that this was going to happen, that he would start to become really
What is he
agitated?
reacting to,
Contribution,
though? I didn't hear what was
$43.
said that
He was
reacting
reacting to Biden saying that he knew that this was a problem from the start and that he didn't want to tell anyone and that he was
There
on
was something
record
about money though,
recorded.
in the stock market. Oh, that's probably what it was. Biden likes to point out that Trump
Well,
measures the quality of the economy based on the stock market.
No, that
and
wasn't it.
success.
That wasn't it. So
Okay.
what we know actually happened was the Republicans knew what was going on. They didn't tell anyone, and then they basically did insider trading to sell their stocks before the
Oh,
economy
yeah.
realized that the virus was a thing.
Yes.
So
And then
it,
held
All
off
right, we're
telling.
going to
Yeah.
move on to our next section, which is national security. And
And
do
that's
wanna
what triggered
start
Trump.
with
Yeah,
the
that was pretty
security of
bad.
our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election. I won't even get into the last one.
that's unfortunately leaning into the narrative that Biden is in fact a warmonger.
This
it though?
election,
Yes,
that
there is a
Russia has
narrative
been
out there.
involved, China's been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm
probably
elected.
means
They're
sanctions,
interfering
though.
with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty.
Because
And to the best
usually
of my
paying a price
knowledge, I don't think the
becomes
president said
economic
anything to
sanctions
Putin about it.
to start
I
with.
don't think he's stalking them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is
His
not
fucking
true.
face.
He's not doing
And
it
then
well
what
enough.
happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because
that
they
is
know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it,
Started
but it's
off weak,
worth
but he's
asking
gotten
the
stronger.
question.
He's fixed it now.
Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
I'm guessing
President
that he
Trump,
was told not to
same
talk about
question to
Iran.
you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have
He's
2
coaching.
minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes
Well,
uninterrupted.
let me respond to the first part as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia.
What?
Unsubstantiated
Oh
and
my
false.
God. Quick,
And
look
it
at
came
fact check.
through Putin
No, it's
because
false.
he was
We
very
already
friendly
know
with
that.
the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million. And, you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get 3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about
Man,
that.
something's
And
weird
through
about the searching on this
John,
page, I think.
who is John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they
Pause the
both
video for a
want
sec.
you to lose.
And then
Because there has
search,
been
'cause
nobody
we're
talking.
missing content. Just search for the. You had million, right? Do $1 million. $1 million.
3 million?
Well, it might be the word 3.
Joe, 3 million.
It probably won't be in that order though, or is that just a normal search? Were you just searching randomly? You needed to search the debate, didn't you? That page. You just didn't search for the right words. You can do Control F for that, by the way. There
Joe
it is.
got that came through Putin because he was friendly with the mayor of Moscow and it was his wife. is misstated and lacks any evidence. So, well, hard evidence.
When he first made this claim, he said Biden's son Hunter Biden received the money, extending the charge to the former vice president lacks any proof whatsoever. But here's what we know about the origin.
Yada yada yada. I don't care. It's misstated.
Tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions,
Bullshit.
between all of what I've done
like,
with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to
Biden's
Ukraine.
like, what?
There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and
Biden's
Barack
just not looking at
Obama,
him.
they took
Not
over
gonna.
a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even
He just
worse.
says whatever he
All
wants.
of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was
my God,
happening.
he's making
and it
things
should
up.
have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
That
Oh,
was
there's his mic. See, it was muted.
that was actually a good. That was really good from Trump.
What do you think? Why? Why do you say that? I mean,
So he essentially is casting huge doubt on Biden, alleging evidence such as emails, and he's causing the same issue with Hillary. Although it lacks the sort of Hillary's emails level of intrigue over the years.
and frenzy.
Yeah, and frenzy. This is extremely solid
Yeah.
as a way to destabilize faith in Biden. However, I don't think it will influence Biden's voters.
Yeah,
I think it will only reinforce Trump's.
I think that's true.
Vice President Biden, you may respond.
be
30
straight
seconds.
here.
And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life.
Good job.
We learned
Well
that this
said.
president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling?
Awesome
the foreign
response.
countries are paying
It's
you
really
a
solid.
lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas.
Oh,
so
no way.
What's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
That was
such a strong response. I think. Were you going to say something else?
I think that Biden is doing a lot better in this debate
Yeah, I was thinking
because he can get his thoughts out.
He's also worked hard not to
You
get
can-
riled up,
you
get
can-
triggered.
You can
so,
see that. So Trump's initial attempts in the first debate was to keep throwing Biden off to make him look senile.
Yeah, and weak. Yeah.
And for the most part, it actually worked
Yeah.
because he was so interrupted and so flustered that he actually didn't manage to get a lot of substantive points out.
yeah. He did a few really good ones though. You have to give him credit.
However, I
Given
think
the
Trump's
pressure.
tactic, as much as it made it look like a shit show, actually worked really well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With this time around, the rules being more
I think-
reining in the behaviour.
I think that Biden, now that he can keep his thoughts in one straight line, can get out some really strong zingers
First
like
of
that
all,
one.
I mean, he's a very
I called
articulate.
my accountants
Well, I don't know,
under audit.
articulate's
I'm
right.
going to release them
He's
as soon as
capable.
we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful.
I want to do it, but I'm still under audit and I'm just full of shit. Nobody believes that. Not one person. I don't think any of his supporters believe that. What are you thinking? You look like you're going to cry.
Fuck me.
Company is, but much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, What did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid.
No, he didn't. He
because
didn't.
at
No,
some point
pause.
they think it's an
He lost money in his businesses, and that allowed him to have tax credit. That's not the same as fucking prepaying. It just shows he's a bad businessman.
estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you
that.
released
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make
What?
money from Russia. You made $3.5 million.
This is
Oh my god!
No,
Talk
no, no.
about projecting.
no. Listen. This is actually a tried and true tactic from preschool. No, you.
From preschool. No, you. No, you. No, you.
Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement.
I know you are. You said you
that
are, but what am
we
I?
have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not. But you're the big man, I think.
You're the
Your
big
son
man.
said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that
What?
all about?
What does
It's
that even
terrible.
mean?
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions
I have
about
to
all of this.
respond to
But
this.
I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon as the
a
audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a time.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance
Some
to
point
talk
about
about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows,
Oh, I
Mr.
think Trump
President.
just
What
got
they
muted.
do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
So
President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you
Sure.
on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because
All right.
the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your
he
family
winning?
has
Which
taken.
one?
I mean,
Which
your
one?
brother made money in Iraq.
Let me-
Millions of dollars. Your other brother.
By the way,
brother
Lucy
made a
stepped away
fortune,
for a minute.
and
She's
it's
getting
all
us
through you,
water.
Joe. And they say you
if you
get
hear
some
funny
of it.
noises, that's
and you
what's
do
happening.
live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships?
Hang on, I'm pausing that just so Lucy can hear the question.
All right.
Go back a few seconds and hear the question.
Okay. Did I miss anything big?
No, not really.
Okay.
Family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq.
Let me-
Millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune. And it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it. And you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal.
He didn't say inappropriate.
Yeah, but that would cover. She shouldn't have even needed to say both words. It was a bit redundant. Because unethical would be inappropriate.
With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of Burisma, a company that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out...
Just to clarify too, with the Burisma thing, Trump's claim is that if you go to the ABC News, you'll find... Anyway, Trump's claim is that that Biden pressured...
How the fuck do I...
What are you looking for?
Impeccably.
Yeah, that's right. That was right. It's just not there.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, Trump claims that Biden is corrupt because his son worked for this company that supposedly was under investigation by someone in government in the Ukraine, and that Biden then pressured for that person to be fired in government in order to prevent the investigation of Burisma. However, that company was never under investigation at all. Biden did work for them, but he wasn't under investigation. And when Biden Jr., that was, when Joe Biden was pressuring for this man to be fired or to be stood down, he actually was really corrupt, and he was forcing bribes out of people and extorting people and that sort of stuff, he and his cohort. So what he actually did was clean up corruption, not partake in corruption.
U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing. Number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had the only guy made money from China is this guy. The only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
Could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that.
Oh my
and
God.
he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000.
This is actually something that is quite well repeated, that they think that basically that Biden's kid only got positions because of
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Or because of his father.
Yeah.
A month. Listen to this. 183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the Vice President respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a question to you. Very
No
quickly.
basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business.
So I just need to note that the moderator said okay, and he said excuse me.
Yeah, like he thought she was going to interrupt.
This is part of my point. He's starting to get frenzied.
Yeah.
I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every
President Trump,
place he
thank you. We
goes.
do need to move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. Of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China. up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy.
Oh.
We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Trump's going to talk about his
very
own
quickly, and then we're going to move on to North
with
Korea.
$1.5 billion from China to manage after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what specifically are you going to do? What
specifically
are you going to do to make China pay? You said you're going to pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
Yeah, he had to do that because he did sanctions that hurt them, and he had to give them.
You know, the taxpayers, it's called China.
Money
China
to make
paid
up for it.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel industry.
Okay, Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why
it's
he's
actually in the
bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want to feel like when he talks
about North Korea. I just want to turn to 10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks. The family around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
I'm not a typical politician.
Okay,
that's why I got elected.
Let's
get off the subject of China. Let's
Finally,
talk
he tells
around
the
sitting
truth.
around the
He's not a
table.
typical
Come on, Joe, you
politician.
can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your
I
beautiful
think that
letters
was actually
with
a
him.
strong side bit, although it was
It's like the reason he got elected in the first place.
It was a poorly put in bit, but it was a strong side bit in saying that I'm not like other politicians. I'm not going to dodge a question. That I think.
But he does.
No, it doesn't matter if he does or doesn't. It's his.
It's his thing. It's his marketing thing.
It's the marketing. It's
the
the
gimmick.
argument itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test, and yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago...
Basically, Trump's entire argument is that we're not in nuclear war, so it's good. Thumbs up.
It's also he gets to take credit for it. He nearly made it happen. Ooh.
They can't see that.
Okay.
He broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul. Millions of people would be dead right now.
President
we
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and
seconds.
I have a good
Thank
relationship.
you. Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted
He's
4
fucking
nuclear
upset
tests
that he
under the
couldn't
Obama
finish.
administration. Why do you think
has
you
to
would be
obey a
able to
black woman.
rein in this persistent threat right
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden.
I just have to say, I think it was a bit unwise to say thug. Because if he becomes the president, he's already sabotaged that relationship.
There is no relationship. He's made it extremely clear that he wants to continue Obama's thing of dismantling North Korea, which is a strong and very classical American thing of dismantling other governments.
Well, North Korea is the war they never could win, so I guess that's part of it. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like if you want to have diplomatic relations with a country like that, that has got nuclear weapons and so on, you don't want to be saying things like that.
Realistically, though, I think that it's the right thing to say. I think
it's good to be honest.
Well,
but I don't think it helps him with diplomatic relations.
I think the way that he said it was bad. I think that he, and by that I mean I just think his argument was given very weakly with lots of weird tangents in it.
Okay.
You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
They tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't
That's not
like
actually how it worked.
Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's
I-
okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, 'cause
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
We have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
Your
a bad
response.
And we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right, let's
That's
move
true.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk
He
about
left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to all
2 or
of our
3
other
months,
questions tonight.
there was a
mute
very
button on now?
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked
just not
things out a
listening to
little
her
bit.
at all.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to
would say as a
American families
debater, though,
and the
getting in the last
economy.
word was probably a good
One of the
idea.
issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have
she mention,
Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer
pre-existing
is
conditions in the
Obamacare,
question?
because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much
hang on.
better.
He keeps going on about, every time he speaks, about how pre-existing conditions, he is defending them and making sure that they stay. But he actually has a team of lawyers in court right now in a process trying to remove the protection for individual pre-existing conditions in people's policies. So I don't know why he thinks it's okay to keep saying that. Like, I know that he just tells crap anyway, but it's like the complete opposite of what his team is actually doing.
It's
So
because,
it
his smooth reptilian brain can't comprehend having two coherent thoughts that actually mesh together.
Will always protect people with pre-existing. So
calling
I'd
him a
like to
lizard
terminate
person?
Obamacare, come up with a brand new...
Don't you know? All people who work in government are lizards.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why do you think it looks like their skin doesn't fit?
Beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families. Under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job.
That's actually a really interesting little side stab. He's basically implying that Biden is actually just voting for Bernie and socialized medicine.
Yeah, but he's not. Like, it's crazy.
No, but
because-
he said that Biden wouldn't have a choice.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
but
I mean, I guess he's making things up.
The implicit thing is that he's saying that Bernie sort of pulls a lot of strings.
Well, he might, but he's not in
Healthcare.
charge.
And we're going to do even better.
Okay,
Let me
Vice
respond.
President
He
Biden,
was
yes,
cut off
this is
as he
for
was
you. Your
speaking.
healthcare
Yes,
plan calls for
excellent.
building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan
just would
if the
think
law
that
is
that
ruled
shouldn't happen.
unconstitutional by the Supreme
Rudeness
Court?
is
You
too
have
much.
2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if
That's actually funny.
We
He wants to have Biden care.
We really need to stop these names. We really just need a name that won't
What is
fucking
with all
change
the-
every year.
What is with all the ego attachment to everything as well? It's got to have a name attached to it.
Just
I guess it's because if they say national public health care, everybody freaks out because they've been brainwashed into thinking that's really bad for you.
Yeah, but it's also it feels ego. And
But
few,
before you,
in
no,
fact, do
just
not
wait.
have-
I just want to point out that the average Australian pays a small percentage extra tax, like 2.5% or 2%, I forget now, of income to cover all of their medical stuff. We also have to pay extra for specialists and some of the scans and tests. And we have the option to go private if we want, which gives us the option to jump queues for surgery and also choose the surgeon in the hospital that we want. But basically, you know, like 20 years ago, gave birth, had a 24-hour labour and a cesarean, a whole week in hospital, all the care I needed, and home visits from nursing care afterwards for free. Not a single dollar out of my pocket. And if I think back to what I would have been paying as a percentage of my income back then, it was probably about $1,500 a year, which is nothing compared to what Americans pay for this system that they're promoting.
It's
like Americans
insane.
are paying up to 30% of their income for
Americans,
private health.
Americans are completely brainwashed when it comes to their health system.
It just makes me sad, actually, because I know so many people over there who just really struggle because of their healthcare bill.
I guess you could say that it isn't very healthy.
Yeah, you could, but that would be really bad, so don't.
Have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't, not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions, and all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response to
it's
them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump.
He actually has a good point there, because so many people have lost work. It's like 1 in 5 businesses have shut down. Those businesses are where people got their health insurance, because you get it through your work.
Right.
So if those people are out of work, they have no health insurance. So he's completely right that they need a public option in order to get through the future, basically, because there's going to be so many people without health insurance just because of COVID.
Additionally, though, there's actually another thing that's part of that, is that it allows the government to actually control the market, because the government can always do a competitive price to force
They can
other
help
companies.
the prices to be pushed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
Your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was
did do something,
three
though.
quarters. It was just a little while ago, right?
not like he did
Less than
nothing.
4 years ago. He
Like
didn't
in
do
that 8-year
anything.
period.
He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and
Remember
wants
he
it
called
even
her
more.
that monster?
Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to
Did he just
Pennsylvania after he
impersonate
gets
someone?
a nomination where he got very
That's what it
lucky to
sounded
get it.
like.
And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, "Oh, we're going to have fracking." And you never asked
What
that
are you
question.
talking about? The
And, by
Obama
way,
Biden
so far,
government
I
brought in
respect
most
very
of the
much the way
fracking.
you're handling this. I have to
They
say.
did huge amounts of
Somebody should
fracking.
ask the question.
Yeah.
He goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking. There
we
will
do
be
have
no
a number of
petroleum.
topics
No,
we're
no,
going
but
to get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
We're going to get to
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. And what we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare,
No, he's not.
totally destroying, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole
No,
country
he's not.
will
You're
come
the one
down.
that's been talking about
Bernie
plundering
Sanders
Social
tried
Security.
it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's
was
let Vice President
impossible
Biden
to work.
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
running
that's
against
right.
Joe Biden.
He's very
I beat
confused.
all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it.
That's horrifying.
This is the guy who's tried to
So
cut
soon.
Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of.
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to
President,
hurt
and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago, go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social
Can we
Security.
go and check that on the fact thing? He tried to get rid of Social Security. Oh, he found it. Good job.
To hurt Social Security.
This distorts the record.
He offered a variety of Social Security plans starting in the 1970s. He called for an increase in monthly benefits, then for a year freeze, then floated raising the retirement age, then back to change on how benefits would increase. He calls for higher monthly checks for the oldest beneficiaries.
So he's not actually calling to get rid of it at all.
No.
That never has.
In the 1980s and 1990s, he spoke in favour of freezes to rein in spending and reduce the deficit. His point was that no part of the government should be exempt from the effort to balance the budget. As vice president, he generally focused on protecting Social Security and
So
resisted
kind of the
moves to
opposite of
privatize
what
it.
Trump's saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that when they
Mr.
announced
President, I have
last
to move
week,
on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going to
will
have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm elected.
I like
If
that
he's
she
elected,
tried.
the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
She's
move
done
on
better
to
than the other
next
moderators.
question.
I'll give her
Very
that.
quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars.
Yeah.
$700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on
really
Capitol Hill.
good.
Yeah.
That was
401ks
really
are
good.
through
What
the
happens
roof.
to
We're gonna
normal
move on.
people?
Are through the roof,
All right.
and he doesn't come from Scranton.
They measure the
That's
economy in
like one
different
he
languages
lived there
while
for
they-
a short period of time before he even knew
We're
it.
going
Like-
to move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
I'll just pause it for a sec. Yeah, like Trump, he's right. Like Trump measures the economy and how well it's doing based on the stock market.
Yeah,
And whereas the average person running a country would be looking at other things like gross domestic product and poverty indexes and unemployment rates. Speaking of which, let's just talk about the unemployment rate for a second. In America, the unemployment rate is listed at something like 7.5% currently. But actually, what that unemployment rate does is includes everybody that worked in that 14-day period. So if they've worked for 1 hour, there you go, 7.9% unemployment, which is pretty good. It could be better, but it could be a lot worse right now. But it's actually kind of a false rate, because if someone worked 1 hour in a fortnight, they'd be listed in those figures. So
And the reality is that everyone's trying to do even small amounts of work.
exactly, and the state of the gig economy now, like with so many people doing little short shifts on things and deliveries and whatever else, that means that people aren't necessarily earning. They could be
actual
working
salary.
exactly. They're not necessarily earning a survivable income. So saying unemployment is at that figure isn't really very useful.
People of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As
Oh,
of
sorry.
tonight,
I I just
More
wanted
than 12.
wanted to conclude that with, I read something the other day that looked at the unemployment rate if you were to take into account people who earned under $18,000 in a year, and that unemployment rate went up to 24% for America.
Wow.
It was really bad. It's like basically the person who was doing that was an economist who was saying we have a crisis and it's
12
being
million people
ignored
are
because of
out
those
of work,
graphs.
and as of tonight,
the way they
8
count
million
that.
more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi.
So he's the moderator even said, "But you're the president."
Yeah, but I mean, let's take two sides of the argument for a second, for argument's sake. He's saying he has to get it through the House. She's saying, "But you're the president," because he can write an executive order, and he's written so many. Why couldn't he do it for this, right? But what the House is saying, if they're knocking stuff back, it's because it's not enough.
Yeah. The thing is, though, he could write an executive order if he really wanted.
Because she'd
Or he
love
could
to have
release
some
something right now and
victories
then push through
on a
the
date
rest.
called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so they then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
The
these
bill that was
guys?
Did Mitch
passed in the
McConnell say
House
that?
was a bailout of badly run.
Bankrupt.
If
Next.
Social
there's only
Security
one.
bankrupt by 2020 with no way to make up for it. He did say that
That was the Social Security thing. Oh, it needs context, okay.
said that Trump favors something more limited to forgive the taxes would
Would have been due from a 4-month payroll tax holiday he enacted by executive order to ease the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. That was a long sentence. Trump has also mused about terminating the tax, which would put the program under great financial strain. However, Trump also said he would look to Congress to maintain the program in that scenario by drawing on general revenues, potentially in excess of $1 trillion a year. That's just all about the Social Security thing.
Yeah, so no, that's not.
High crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these kids. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally.
What?
We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that,
He's
I'd
turned
love
it
to
into a
help them,
DACA
but what
thing?
that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right, I
If
want
talking
to.
I
about?
get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American
Like, I literally
president.
don't know what he
I don't
just
see
said.
red states and blue states. what I see as American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything
PPP?
from organize how they can deal with their
don't you know?
business being open. Schools, how they can make classrooms
Are you familiar
smaller,
with
how they can
PP?
hire more teachers, how they can put
mean
ventilation
like Pepe Le
systems in.
Pew?
They need
Sure.
the help. Businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
One thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to get
said we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently-
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said
Many,
recently you
there's
would
more that don't
consider
have many.
raising the federal minimum wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all
This is the thing is, no matter how they do this, someone's got to take the blow, right? If they're saying it's difficult for someone. So what he's promoting is that employees should take the blow. In order to keep the businesses open, the employees should go on lower pay and just suffer. And what Biden is saying is we should be paying the employees properly and helping the businesses to do that.
And bail out the businesses.
Yeah, bail out the business so that way, and then the government takes the blow.
Yeah.
The blow's got to land somewhere, that cost. And
The
in
reality-
order to create that equity and make it so that people can afford to live on their wage and eat.
What's insane is that fucking they have the money to do it.
Well, they can just make their money. You know, it's not a good idea, but they can.
Some places,
No, but they can take it
$15
from
is
the,
not
like,
so bad.
$1 trillion a year
other
in
places,
military.
Other states, $15 would
Okay,
be
President
and the
Trump, thank you.
taxes
Quick
from the
response,
wealthy.
Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level.
Exactly.
And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about
Also-
immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate...
Something's really fucking me off here, and it's this.
The logo.
This logo is cut off, and it's so obvious that the graphic guy who made it just got the President of the United States seal and just dragged it and cut it there, so it kept without, like, interfering with the rest.
It's taken you this long to comment on that?
No, it's been niggling at me. It fucking annoys me because it's like, you could have
feel
done
like-
something much more talented than just cropping the President of the United States thing.
Or they could have made it fit.
the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad
What?
people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they
Oh, they're
used to use
smugglers,
them to get
coyotes.
into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400.
The coyotes are the ones that get them through the mountains and stuff and get them across the line.
Right.
Yeah. And they charge.
miles
They're
of
like our
brand new
boat
wall.
smugglers.
You see
Right,
the
right.
numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you
But
reunite
let me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let
families,
me just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, "I built the cages," and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper.
Is he really
There was
gonna
a
say he
picture of
didn't
these
have anything to do
horrible
with the cages?
Yep.
And they said, "Look at these cages. President Trump built them," and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
Is that
reunite
true?
the kids?
Yes, we're
That's
working on
important.
it very. We're
Cages. This needs context. Both the Obama and Trump administrations used chain link enclosures to hold immigrants at border processing facilities. The term cages has been used by Trump critics to describe this type of enclosure. The claim about cages came during a question about family separations. Blah, 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 blah.
The Obama administration did not have a policy to separate families
Families,
arriving
yeah.
illegally at the border.
Keep going. These 500... Oh, that's another claim below that, is it?
So, yeah,
Okay.
no.
Yeah.
So,
We're
But
trying
it didn't say
very
about who
hard.
built it.
But a lot
Oh,
of these
no.
kids come
Yeah.
out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes
So putting
and through
people in those
gangs.
holding
Vice
facilities,
President Biden, let me
but
bring
not
you into
separating
this
them.
conversation. Quick
Is not
response
as
and then
bad, I
another
suppose.
question to you.
These 500
bad.
plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with.
How many babies are still
Big,
missing?
real tough. We're really
Last I
strong.
heard it was like
and guess
1,500
what?
children are
They
missing.
cannot. It's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents, and it makes us a laughing stock.
So
and
that's why Trump said
violates
that.
every notion
To
of
make
who
it
we
sound
are
like he
as
just
a
separated
nation.
them from the smugglers.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to
did
that?
it.
We
changed.
did not
They built the
separate
cages.
they-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and
Literally.
separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to
500.
go.
Far out.
Nowhere to go.
That's wrong.
It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down. We
seconds, and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of them
have gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask
But
him
that's
that.
really
Who built
not
the
the point.
cages?
Let me
use
ask
them.
about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because it made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship.
gonna like that
the
one.
idea that they are being sent home by this guy, and they want to do that, is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, "Oh, no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you." They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed
We did.
without having a specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice
What?
President
Oh
Biden,
my
your
God, he's
response.
really just
The
done
catch
that.
and release. You know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released, and guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the
it
first
was less
president in the
cruel.
history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
so
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is
Oh
a
my
disaster. A murderer would come in.
This is actually.
Oh my God, he's going back to the murderer thing.
This is actually really good by Trump. He's saying it with such confidence and undermining everything about Biden. It's actually quite good. I
feel like he's doing it a lot better this time because he's been told to pause.
Yeah.
A rapist would come in. A very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back
That might
in
be
2
true now,
years, 3 years.
because after all of
We're
the
going to give you a
terror.
court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court
Child
case.
separation and stuff.
When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only.
Do they come back? Let's see. Catch and release. Catch. Try catch.
Nope.
Huh. Why haven't they not they haven't checked enough? Maybe need another fact checker as well. Or at least Google it. Google the question. CNN, they're the ones hosting it. New York Times. New York Times is probably pretty solid.
Let's just go with the people who host it.
Okay. Search for catch.
Nope.
Huh.
Immigrants never come back for court appearances.
Okay. Yep. It's just false. There you go.
It's-
Facts first, this is false. Trump is giving the impression that immigrants never show up for court proceedings after they're released from the US custody. Most immigrants do attend their scheduled hearings in immigration court. According to the latest statistics, 25% of immigration cases were decided in absentia in fiscal year. So that's a quarter in 2018, meaning my immigrants did show up for 75% of the cases. So that is obviously most, not never. The union representing immigration judges called Thursday's exchange on the matter false on Twitter, stating, "We would know." That's great.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President.
Now they're
let's
murderers
give
and
Vice President
stupid.
Biden a chance to respond, and
Fuck's
then
sake,
we're
only
gonna
the
move on
stupid
to
ones
the
come
next
back, you're
section.
saying?
Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law. What he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's
that's a
move
good
on
We
one.
don't have
to
to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
Go do
terminated
fact
it,
check.
so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk about our next
so bad for
section,
those
which
children.
is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And, you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street, making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are,
What's
in
Trump
fact,
doing?
the
I should
victim,
pay more
whether you're
attention to his
a
face.
person making $300,000, child of a
Because he doesn't believe any of
$300,000 a year person, or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? we have never,
Trump's
ever
face
lived up
says,
to,
"He's
but
full
we've
of
all
shit."
constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to
Trump looks
opportunity
triggered?
to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we
He
can
wants
do, and
to
I've
talk.
laid out
Yeah,
a clear plan
he's starting to
as to
redden up.
how to do those things. Just to give
Mouth
people a
hardened.
shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents
just
fear
gonna
for their
attack
children?
Biden.
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators.
He what? Did he?
Fuck.
What'd you just do? Oh, I thought you closed the YouTube for a second there.
No
What did he
evidence. Completely never happened.
Gave a speech on the Senate floor in which he said the country should focus on young people who had no supervision or opportunities. Otherwise, they'd become the predators 15 years from now. Biden did not single out black Americans. Madam President, we have predators on our streets, and society has, in fact, because of its neglect, created that, he said. The term super predators refers to something Hillary Clinton said in 1996 when referring to a gang of kids. She did not specifically say super predators were black Americans, but decades later, Clinton apologized for the comment. So it's nothing to do with Biden at all.
No,
And
not
he
really.
said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than
Than me.
Donald Trump. And if you look, with the
Nobody has
exception
done more.
of
What a load of
Abraham
crap.
Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done
God.
what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was
To get
not a
what
pretty
done?
picture.
What is he
And
saying he
everybody
did?
knows it, including some very liberal
All the
people that
things.
cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from
God, he's
South
actually giving
Carolina.
real
He came in
examples,
with
if
this
they're true.
incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it.
Can we look
Tremendous
what it was, an
investment is
opportunity
being the
zone?
biggest beneficiary. The
Seems important.
No.
Yes. We're
We're
not here to just skim over this.
black and Hispanic communities.
Just for the record, I just took over the keyboard. So it might be bad. What you need to know about opportunity zones. Why'd you go to images? I just want to know the definition of it. The new community development program established by the United States Congress to encourage long-term investments in low-income urban and rural communities nationwide. The Opportunity Zones program provides a tax incentive for investors to reinvest their unrealized capital gains into qualified opportunity funds that are dedicated to investing into opportunity zones designated by the chief executives of every U.S. state and territory. It's a bit unclear.
Basically, it's helping invest in.
It's helping investors to find places to put their money that may give opportunities to people that are disadvantaged in theory.
That seems to be what it is in theory.
That was the government website page. That might be why it didn't make much sense. Can we go to something that's not the government?
Timeline for opportunity zone investment.
No, can you just go to normal, not pictures?
Yeah.
Forbes, that's a good resource.
It can be.
Well, like it's generally pretty thorough.
Known for creating opportunity zones. It's moving billions of dollars into low-income communities. However,
There remains an open question as to whether this program will ultimately serve to add value or extract values from these communities. The OZs are defined as economically distressed communities where new investments under certain conditions may be eligible for preferential tax treatment. So they're a tax loophole.
Yep, that's what it looks like.
Huh. Okay,
Okay.
let's see.
And then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
President.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you do it? You were vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe,
That's
I
a
ran
good
because of you.
It is, but it's
I
not
ran
true.
because of
Doesn't
Barack
matter,
Obama.
it's a good
Because you did a
response.
poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run.
It's one of his
I would have
better
never run.
responses. I'll give
I
him.
ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President,
what a
Biden,
load
your
of
response
crap.
to that, and then I do
Was
have
that
some
talking about
questions
running
for
in the
both of you.
90s?
Well, I tell you what,
I think it was. Maybe even as
I
early
hope he
as
does
80s.
look at me because what's happening here is you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond,
If
and then we're
this
going to have
stuff
follow-up
is true
questions.
about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a
it's
corrupt
true.
politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody-
President
The
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of
Excuse me,
race. We're
take a look
talking
at
about the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody's
talking about
kidding.
race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
Sounds like
You
Biden's
got
a
it.
bit
Exactly
flustered by
what.
that.
This
That's
where you're going?
exactly what.
This
was
is
told.
where he's going. The
All right.
laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing.
That sounds like
as
a
far
lie.
as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that?
Oh my God, did you hear what he said? Lucy just fell down and dead from the shock. Or the exasperation or something.
I'm so done. I'm so done!
You have no idea how hard it is to sit and continue watching this. But yeah, I cannot believe that he just said he's the least racist person in the room when he's talking to a black woman.
That rhetoric.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know
videos.
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am
Who's
the
a poor
least
innocent baby now?
racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for
Sorry,
you.
everybody,
Abraham Lincoln
but
here
it's
is one of the most
just
racist
beyond a
presidents
joke.
we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single
Absolutely.
one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
He made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham
No,
Lincoln.
where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying-
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
thousands of black mostly
Finally,
in jail.
Biden cracked.
You know what?
Honestly,
I feel like he did so well.
he was doing so well.
Just take a look at
Oh,
Look
God.
at that beautiful smile. Although I have to say it's a bit Joker, that smile. It's a bit creepy in a way.
what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change this since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But why didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why
That's
didn't
actually
he
a
get
good
it done?
response.
That's what I'm going to do when I become
Why didn't he
president.
get it done?
You were vice president
fair.
along with Obama as your president,
He had
your
some
leader,
time.
for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done.
Well, they did
because
have a
you're all
minority
talk and
government,
no
though.
action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
didn't get
38,000. We
anything
got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I just asked one
You
question.
know what? That's a good enough
Why
response.
I agree.
didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago?
I mean, the question is good.
Why
Why
didn't you do
get
it?
it
You just said,
done? He's
I'm
just
going to do
answered it.
that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why, Joe? Because you're all talk and
Joe's
no
failing.
action.
All right, Vice President Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a
okay.
Republican Congress.
Yep, that's the answer.
That's the
it.
answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe. Sometimes
right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section.
Like I
which
did with
is
It just makes me
criminal
want to
justice
swear the
reform.
condescending
I
nature of
talked
that.
Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You don't talk
we're
anyone
running out of
into
time, so we
anything.
got to get on to climate change, please.
Just do
You
executive
both have
orders.
very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the clearest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air.
Says
we
one
have
thing,
the
says
best,
we have so many.
lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years.
Just for the record, they use carbon credits to then make it so it's fine. It's not that their emissions are particularly better, and also some of those emissions are also because of COVID.
Under this
what I was thinking
administration,
too, COVID
we are
would've pulled the
working
numbers
so
down.
well with industry, but
But
here's
yeah,
what we can't
credits
do.
are actually
Look
a
at
thing, carbon
China,
credits. You
how
should look it up.
filthy it
Yeah,
is.
we do it. We do
Look
it here
at
too. though.
Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out
but they got
because
less
we
people
were going to
dead
have
from
to
COVID
spend
than you.
trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change and climate warming, the global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble.
Yep.
Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of
Trump obviously
oil
thinks that's
in the
stupid.
process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are
have to
at
say, I
stake.
think it feels like
That's
Biden's
what's
getting
happening.
tired.
And what,
Yeah.
right now, by the way,
He's
Wall
gonna
Street
cop
firms
criticism for
indicated
that.
that
He is.
my
He's
plan,
absolutely getting tired.
My plan will, in fact,
But to be fair, we're just watching it and I'm tired.
18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
Today came out and said very strongly $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people.
Is he talking about
this
the Green New
wasn't
Plan?
done by
'Cause isn't
anybody.
that the Green New
Frankly,
Deal,
I don't even know how it can be good politically. They
Isn't that
want to
what Biden
spend
said he's not gonna do?
$100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President
It
respond,
is
and we're running out of time, and we have a lot
And
more
you'll
questions to
destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So let's hear from the Vice
So focused
President.
on
I
little
have a number
windows.
more questions.
I don't know
The
where he
little
comes from.
windows.
I don't know where he
The
gets
tiny
these
little
numbers.
windows.
doesn't-
No, you've got to realize the tiny little windows. They'll confuse his reptilian brain,
right.
and he won't realize where the doors are.
But I'm just sort of picturing him sitting in a room with tiny little windows rocking in the corner. Like,
Well, you don't understand. He fundamentally cannot understand
really-
a little window because
That's because his head's so big.
No, because his reptilian brain will get confused as to where the door of a room is if the windows aren't as big as the wall.
Okay, then. Because that's
$100
psychological, but anyway.
trillion.
What do you mean? Of course it
Give me
is.
a break. This plan was, this is plan endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor. Because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there.
Yeah.
And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy
Definitely getting
and
tired.
wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, $45-50 an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I
Excuse
have
me.
We
a
are
follow-up.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind
of that's
than you
because
do.
of Obama's.
It's
Biden's
extremely
fucking
expensive.
face.
Kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems.
Trump really
and they
hates
happen to
those
make the
windmill
windmills in
things.
both Germany and China.
Pesky
And the
things,
fumes coming up,
killing
if you're a
birds.
believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
that said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the
pretty
world.
powerful. I think the issue is storage,
it's
isn't
all
it?
a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want and what about fracking?
All right,
Now
let me
ask him about
allow
fracking.
Vice President Biden to respond.
Never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is,
Show
he's
the list.
flat lying.
Would you
Flat-
rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer we need
Leave it there for
other
people to read for a sec.
industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture
Right,
the
so he
emissions
wants that
from
he would,
the fracking,
On new
capture the
fracking.
emissions
That's
from
different to
gas.
banning
We
fracking.
can do that,
His
and we can
government
do
brought in
that
a
by
lot of
investing
fracking.
money.
But he
Him
still,
and Obama.
but he
It's a
still
transition
misspoke and
to
retracted
that.
that anyway.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse me.
we have.
He was against fracking. He said it.
Wait a minute,
I will
can you
show
pause for a
that to you
second?
tomorrow.
Are you saying he retracted saying he'd put a ban on new fracking?
Yeah, he retracted.
Can I see?
He said he walked back to those remarks on the same day and has repeatedly said he doesn't support or ban on fracking.
So he didn't really believe in that. Okay.
Against fracking until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania. Then he said, "But you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against
fracking on federal land." I said no fracking or oil on federal land.
Let me ask this final question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
Good question.
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater the percent.
He's actually ignoring the question. He's saying that we're employing more people. He's not talking about the safety of the people.
But he might get to it. He probably won't.
Than it was under in 3 years. Than it was under 8 years.
I keep forgetting that he might
2 of them, to put it
He's not
nicely.
going to put
9
together an
times
argument.
more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again. And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claremont, Delaware.
So they can pour
and
that stuff
all
into
the more
creeks
oil
and
refineries in
water
Marcus Hook
supply.
and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do that.
statement.
Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, excuse me, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give
All
it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question.
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then
Ohio.
I have to get to the
didn't say he
final
was gonna
question.
destroy
Vice
it.
President Biden.
He takes
talking
everything
a
out of
long period
context,
of
but the
time.
point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
gonna get
question
China
to
to
both
do
of
it?
you. No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to,
This is the
to
biggest crowd
Americans who
ever.
did not vote
Even
for
bigger
you?
than last
What will you
time.
say to
have
the Americans
1
who
minute,
didn't
starting
vote?
with you, Mr.
We have to make a country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, etc. But I will tell you, go back.
You just use
Before the
such
plague came in,
inflammatory
just
language.
before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right.
Wow.
Vice President
That's a big
Biden, same
statement.
question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
Tell them to
I will
come
say,
together.
I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
That's a good little speech.
All right, I want to thank you both for a very
And he
robust
didn't have a stab at
hour
Trump.
and a
He
half
just-
of
so I suppose he
fantastic
did
debate.
the last
Really
little bit.
appreciate
Yeah,
it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most
pause there.
importantly,
So,
I was right.
sorry.
I was right.
Yeah. What were you right about?
My opening predictions that Trump would be much more frenetic about his points. He did argue with the
Frantic,
moderator.
sort of. Yeah. He wasn't too bad though. Like, I have to say, it was a far better quality debate than the first one, of course, and even. Well, no, I can't really compare it to the town hall thing.
He behaved substantially
I was
better.
actually really surprised. I thought that he would give him more of a hard time because he could, he does whatever he wants.
He did later.
But I think it was to his benefit. It made him look better that he followed the rules,
Yeah.
like more or less. And it gave him more time to pause and maybe say things better and not just ramble. And it also, the rules obviously helped Biden in a sense that he got to just operate in a more professional way, like not feel so flustered because of having some crazy behavior thrown at him all the time.
I think Biden had good points, weak points. In general, I think that he started to taper off near the end, but he did
Yeah.
give a good final speech.
I mean, that's about an hour and 40 minutes that they went. That's a long time to be maintaining that level of energy.
It is.
It's hard to maintain that energy just watching it. So, that's pretty full on. But I mean, I think what I would want to say at the end of this is that I would ask Americans not to draw a false equivalency between the two men. They're not as bad as each other. They're just not. And you will have your views, whatever they might be, but you need to think about what kind of country you want to live in and what kind of treatment you want your neighbours to receive.
So this is...
And in the end, that's who you're going to choose. But I just sort of think you've got to please pick someone and vote for them, and don't just go, well, neither of them deserve my vote, because if you do, then you're going to get your opponent in. So that's
the thing is, as a Zoomer, I'm just gonna put this out there. If you think that climate change isn't real, you're literally dooming us to extinction. Like,
Yeah.
it is truly an existential threat, and anyone that votes for Trump is inadvertently voting for the end of all of us. It's just another step that way. We're already too late. We need to stop. We need to turn the tide now.
Also, part of you may be wondering why we're getting ourselves involved in a US presidential debate.
Because it's funny.
But there is that, but it's also really serious. It's really not funny, because the outcome of this election doesn't just affect Americans; it affects the entire world, and it already has been affecting the world the way America has declined in the last 4 years.
It's already affected our politics.
It affects everything. It just does, you know, and it's affecting the way people in our country, in Australia, where we're pretty laid back normally. It's affecting the way we interact with people. It's, you know, American politics has polarized people everywhere, not just in America. And so, you know, we really just need to slow the fuck down and make things a little bit less crazy, because it's not actually a healthy way to exist. Nobody can live in this kind of histrionic way forever. It's all going to implode. So, yeah, I guess I feel a little bit... I felt quite concerned at the last election. I didn't want us to end up...
The big fear was the death of truth. That was one of the big. That was one of the big arguments from Australians, at least at the time, was worrying about if he comes in, how much truth will be eroded from government, and you know that has been a prevailing issue, which is quite funny. But
that's my big concern is that that's actually happened. Like,
so remember, if you really, you know, you value truth, honor, and integrity, you should subscribe and hit the bell.
That's very funny. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, you know, I mean, I'm not actually a big fan of Joe Biden, and obviously you could probably tell from this whole recording that I am definitely not a fan of Trump. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, and I was disappointed that it was him that got selected. But I can see that it was why it was him that got selected as the candidate for the Democrats, because it's like out of that whole group, he was the one who could potentially beat Trump, and I think that's why he's been chosen. In the end, he is still 1,000% better than Trump, even though he's not, you know, the best one for the job. So
part of my nihilism really wants Trump to win again, just so I can see where the fuck the world falls because of him.
Oh my god, you're a doomer. You're not just a zoomer, you're a doomer.
No, Doomer's being depressed about it.
What is it called if you want the doom or you're an anarchist? What is it called if you want all of that but you don't feel sad about it?
You're crazy?
So is that what you are? Are you crazy?
No, just stupid.
I just don't want more a decline. I think it's going to cause... I mean, I really feel like Trump, his end goal is, if he can pull it off, he'll be a dictator. I think he's been telling everybody this since before he was ever elected. He's been saying how he, you know, as soon as he got elected, he's talked about ending elections. You know, he wants to undermine the elections. You know, Putin, everybody knows his elections are fraudulent. Stop. Sorry, I was just getting attacked. Everybody knows that he falsifies those elections, and the same thing goes for Bolsonaro and other, you know, dictator type, supposedly democratic election countries. And Trump will be one of those if he can get away with it. And he's been saying these things since before he was elected. He keeps telling everybody what he's going to do, and everybody continues to not believe it really will happen. But it will. He will make it happen if he can. So, yeah. I guess I personally, I don't know about Lucy, but I have a heartfelt desire to plead with Americans and say, just go out and don't vote for Trump. Just stop this. This is crazy.
I think that if you're going to vote for anyone, if you care about any generation surviving into the... if you care about Earth being a habitable planet in the future, then you should probably vote not Trump. And I don't really care who. But otherwise, you know, you could roll the dice, vote Trump, and see just how far this rabbit hole goes.
Yes, please don't take us down the rabbit hole. Please don't. Please don't.
All right, so this is...
Don't vote Trump.
Shut up.
This is like subliminal messaging now. What else do we need to do?
So, other than that, This has been So What Do You Think About the Presidential Debate? Thank you for
Yeah.
listening. And
And thank you for hanging in there with us if you're still there.
so subscribe.
Oh, I wanted to do something for
Why?
people that hung in right to the end. Come here. Spooky. This is
Why?
our dog.
Why?
He's going to speak.
Who's a
Sit
good
down.
boy?
Sit. Speak. Speak. Oh, he's a sleepy. Speak. Say something. Say something.
No, it's not going to happen.
Say something for our audience.
Nope.
Come on.
Nope.
Say something.
You-
Oh, he's I woke him up to do this, so he's not on board.
He's too sleepy.
He's too sleepy.
Anyway, so back on to the actual fucking thing here. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been, you know, an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. It helps with the analytics. If you liked it, hit the like. And yeah, we'll be dealing with other topics. If you ever want to suggest a topic, feel free to put it
Yeah,
in
please
the
do.
comments below.
And we won't always have videos this long, you know, like it's obviously because of the length of the debate. So, you know, please subscribe and get notifications set up as well. Oh, that's important too, because the analytics stuff picks up that this is political, and apparently that reduces the spread of the video and also stops you getting notified, I think. So it's apparently important to get notified of every video. So you set that up.
So, just as a final note, I would like to say that I think the moderator was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that she, especially after the last, the things we've seen so far, she would have known she was up, and that's what I was thinking watching her. I reckon she did the same coaching those two men would have done, where she had two people up there misbehaving, and she had to practice reining them in, because she did such a good job of that, given how tough it is. Yeah. And for the record, I read the other day that the muting was not done by her; it was done by someone else. Not sure who, but yeah. So she just had to hang in there with whatever went on, and I think she did pretty well.